The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome in. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We are off and rolling here on a Thursday. Now, usually when our guy Reed fills in, it's usually for me. But unfortunately for some of you, I'm still here. Reed is here, not filling in for me, but he's filling in for our guy Jacob. Jacob, unfortunately, under the weather. Reed called out of the bullpen. He's coming in. We appreciate him as always. Reed, good morning. How are you, sir? You loosened up? Did you get a couple warm-up throws in? How you feeling today?
Yeah, hello, good morning. Hi, my name's Nicholas Reed Mouse. I'm 28 years old. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a firefighter, but now I do this. It's a beautiful little Monday or Thursday. It's nice to see you, Justin.
Well, good morning. We're glad you are here. Elliot, how are you? Happy post-Bearcat day, post-Bearcat loss day. I don't know what to call it, I guess, but how are we feeling today?
That is a happy day. That is a good and happy day.
What the hell was that? By the way, I missed that bit, Reed. I have missed that bit.
I wish I had a better punchline, but that's all I had.
I think your first one was still your best one. It's okay. Doing great. It's Thursday, so, Thursday is a Thursday. It's one of the best days of the week. Severance is on today. I listened to Reed last week, still haven't watched last week's episode, just going to roll them over tonight. So we'll do it that way. But it's a pleasant day, and obviously the Bearcats did lose, but we knew that was going to happen.
I had faith. You
didn't have faith.
I thought they were going to win. If there's one thing that Wes Miller's Cincinnati Bearcats have shown me is that when it comes time to play in the Big 12 championship, they are ready to rock. It really was surprising that they didn't beat Iowa State yesterday.
We watched it, Kinner, in the studio, and nobody said one nice thing. I had Jacob betting everything he had on Iowa State. I had Reed making fun of me. I had Trace.
I didn't make fun of you.
Yes, you did. Trace would come in here every 4 seconds, and every 4 seconds he'd come in here and make fun of the entire roster. So I had, and then poor Casey. Casey's on my side, but everybody else, they all came in and made fun of my Bearcats.
Listen, I came in here because I saw a stat. I wasn't watching the game live. I was sitting outside the studio. I saw a stat that I was going to come in here and commend Wes Miller's defensive unit for the Bearcats. I came in here. It's halftime. I said, dude, they had Iowa State turn the ball over 10 times in the first half. Iowa State turned the ball over 10 times in the first 20 minutes. Now, they were down 10 at halftime, so it didn't work out. But that's a positive spin. That's a positive spin, and I just came in to tell Elliot that.
Well, to be fair, from a content perspective, I'm disappointed that the Bearcats couldn't get the job done. We were sitting in December, January with the hopes of 4 teams from the state of Ohio getting an at-large bid: Ohio State, Dayton, Cincinnati, Xavier, and now it's all up to Xavier. Xavier has to carry the burden of representing the state of Ohio with an at-large bid. There will be some Ohio teams in, most likely, if depending on who wins the MAC and some of these others, which we'll get to. But we'll get into the Bearcats more coming up in a bit. Dana Rossini had just a brief update on kind of what's going on with Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati. We'll touch on that around the corner. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Reds. The Athletic put out they put out a point system. They put out a survey and ranked all 30 Major League Baseball franchises based on the results of how they finished the season over the last 25 years. You get points based on a World Series appearance, a championship appearance, a divisional wild card appearance. You even get negative points if you had consecutive 90-loss seasons. And where the Reds finish, kind of interesting. Is it surprising? I don't know. We'll get to that. Reed's Cubs, they ranked right there in the middle. We'll take a look at the Cubs as well. Yeah. But, not good, not bad. We'll discuss all of that coming up. Casey, before we get to Elliot's headlines, Casey, good morning. How are we? Did we have any big softball action yesterday? Are you a little bit more awake? How are we feeling today?
Good morning. My name's Casey McAllister. I'm 27 years old. Today is Severance Day, and I'm still waiting for the Bengals to make a move.
Thanks for sharing, Casey.
Yeah, I thought I would share. Yeah, I am a little more awake today. I didn't have to stay up watching Cincinnati, that is, get blowout at the wee hours of the night. So I'm feeling a little better, but at the same time, I'm not because my Cincinnati Bengals have not made a significant move yet. So we're just still waiting here, crossing our fingers.
Only day 4. It's only day 4. You got time.
It's the same team. Only day 4.
You got the draft.
We'll give it a few more days.
Listen, the Cincinnati Bengals front office, if there's one thing that they've showed us, it's how forward-thinking they are, how progressive they are, how outside of the box thinking they are. So I don't know what all the stress is about. We'll get into it later, but yeah, everyone's on pins and needles. You should be on a fluffy cloud.
They got P. Ryan. I don't know what else you guys want.
Correct.
That's what they got.
They got P. Ryan. I said earlier this offseason, if we don't get TJ Slayton, if we do not get TJ Slayton, this offseason's a disaster. Everyone that's on this show, been in this studio, knows I've been saying that, been harping that point all season long, and we got TJ Slayton. So joke's on you guys. Joke's on the NFL, really. What a mistake to let us get.
Listen, I'm having a hard time feeling sorry for any of you because while you wake up frustrated, you still wake up with a roster that has Joe Burrow, Tee Higgins, and Jamar Chase. And even if Tee Higgins, something crazy happens there, you still have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I wake up wondering if today's the day that we get Russell Wilson. I wake up wondering if today's the day that we get Kirk Cousins with one Achilles. I wake up with those concerns and those worries. So I want to feel bad for you guys. It's really hard. It's really, really hard to do so. But either way, being a fan of a team in Ohio is painful no matter what. So that's where we could unite, at least at the end of the day. But
a little
painful. Painful. Elliot, what you got for us? Elliot's headlines, ladies and gentlemen.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines.
Oh,
Whatever's
no.
going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the bench.
It's been blown by a sick boy.
I was going to say
You're running the risk on that one.
He's sick. This isn't my whistle. And as everyone knows, the one rule that you have in this world is you don't blow another man's whistle.
Ooh. Little edgy to start the morning. Good for you.
Flow rider. The Bearcats, we mentioned it. The Bearcats, they end their season 20-point loss to Iowa State, 76-56. Jizzle, 17 points. Josh Reed with 10. Good for them. 20-point loss. It was a 3-point game at one point. Then Trace came in the game. I think they didn't score another point. But 20 points they lose by. Oklahoma, they get past Georgia yesterday, 81-75. Kansas, they survived UCF in overtime. So Kansas keeps it rolling in the Big 12 tournament. SMU's on that bubble line. SMU beat Syracuse by 20, 73-53. Seton Hall, the Pirates. I saw a clip last night of Seton Hall. It was, and I think the caption was just, "This is the last time we get to watch them all year." And it was them shooting 5 shots in the same possession, all getting offensive rebounds, and every shot is like off the side of the iron, airballing, terrible. But Villanova, they win by 12. Rutgers, they lose in double overtime to USC, 97-89. There you go, USC cover bettors. Baylor, they beat Kansas State in the Big 12, 70-56. Mississippi State wins by 30 against LSU. That was another game that was close. I think it was a 5-point game with 13 minutes left. Lose by 30. Stanford, they beat California, 78-73. Georgetown, they fall. Their season comes to a close. They lost to DePaul, 71-67. Iowa, this is the big one. Iowa upset Ohio State, 77-70 to make the bubble a little bit more interesting. Butler takes care of Providence, 75-69. Vanderbilt, they lost 79-72 to Texas. Minnesota, they get upset as well. Northwestern, 72-64, the final score. West Virginia, I thought they were going to win it yesterday. They did not. They blew that game in the second half. 67-60, the final score. Notre Dame, their season ends. North Carolina, 76. Reed's Notre Dame, Fighting Irish. Casey's and Jimmy's, everybody's Fighting Irish. 76-56, the final score there. And Arkansas, they take care of South Carolina, 72-68. Those were some of your scores from yesterday. Obviously, there's a million games that are being played today. There are a million games being played yesterday. This is some of the best time of the year. Moving over to the NBA, the Knicks, they beat the Trailblazers 114-113 in overtime. The Mavericks, they lost again, this time to the Spurs, 126-116. Superstars Brandon Williams and Dante Exum were the leading scorers for the Mavericks.
Love Exum.
I love Exum too. The Thunder, they sweep the season series with the Celtics to clinch a playoff spot. The Thunder win 118-112 last night. NHL, I saw this was kind of interesting. The Kraken, they beat the Canadiens in overtime, where Montour scored the fastest goal in NHL overtime history. It took 4 seconds in overtime for them to win the game. 4 seconds. And then moving over to the NFL, Mac Jones, he signs a 2-year deal with the 49ers. And the Patriots let go of team captain and longtime center David Andrews. But those are your headlines.
One thing we didn't discuss earlier in the week, I mean, it's not like a massive move, but I mean, thought it was an interesting move by the Bills. The Bills did sign Joey Bosa to a 1-year, $12 million deal. Obviously, the Bills, a team, especially for Cincinnati, like, yes, we could talk about the AFC North, but the teams that you're going to be contending with to ultimately win a Super Bowl and get to a Super Bowl, obviously the Bills and the Chiefs and teams like that. But thoughts on the Bills landing Joey Bosa, 1-year, $12 million deal?
I think it's obviously a prove it deal. You know, when the news came across, this is me, quite honestly, just not paying close attention to Joey Bosa's career. And I was like, 1 year, $13 million for a Bosa? That seems staggeringly low. But if you look at the games he's played in the last 3 years, these are the games that he started. 9 games last year, 5 games the year before, and 4 games the year before that. So he's just simply not on the field. When he is on the field, he's still obviously Joey Bosa, one of the best edge rushers in the league. So it's a prove-it deal. It's kind of a win-win for both sides. Obviously, Joey Bosa gets to play on a true contender, and the Bills get, if healthy, a premier pass rusher. So it's we'll see what comes of it. But as we know, and last time the Bills signed a big-name pass rusher, it didn't turn out that well with Von Miller. So it's a good deal. It's an interesting deal, no doubt about it. But I don't know. I guess the Bills are just hoping that he's healthy.
I don't know. I would have taken maybe a flyer on him if I was trying, but Reed kind of said the crux of the issue there. It's if you're not going to play games, what value do you really have? So they're betting on the fact that he plays more than 5 games, and we'll see if they win it. I'd venture to say if he does play more, he's going to be a Pro Bowl level player. If he doesn't, then that contract obviously isn't worth anything.
Von Miller's done, right? Von Miller's out. Did they cut him?
Yes.
Where's Von Miller right now? Did he end up somewhere else?
He's cut.
Yeah, he got cut. I mean, he's old. He's an old pass rusher, so he got cut. The thing about Joey Bosa that, like, I know I just said the stats in which the games he started. Since Zach Taylor has been the head coach in Cincinnati, Joey Bosa's played 1 full season. So, I mean, just to show you how long it's been since he's just always banged up.
Yeah, and by the way, you say take a flyer out. I'm fine with teams taking a flyer out on him, but is $12 million, $13 million taking a flyer out on him? Is that a lot of money to you? I feel like that's a lot of money to take a flyer on someone. I guess it does offset because it is just a 1-year deal. It's not like it's a long-term commitment, but is 12, 13 mil a lot for a 1-year flyer, if you will?
It's significantly cheaper than what pass rushers get. I mean, we just paid BJ Hill as a defensive tackle. We paid him that much money a year. Or around that much money. So just to show you, I mean, it'd be like 1 year of BJ Hill. So you can say what you want, but it is. I mean, if he's sitting on the sideline, he's not worth a darn. So
fair enough. Hey, I do have an update. Elliot, earlier in the week, you shared those. Remember the new Eras hats that came out, and they just look absolutely atrocious, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Some of those hats they had to pull. One of the hats that they had to pull was the Texas Rangers hat because in place of the X, so, yeah, they put the logo of the team over the name of the team, and the X got blocked out, and then it was just TETAS, which in Spanish that means something little derogatory. So they pulled those hats. Those hats sold very, very quickly, and then when people started to criticize it and point out the fact what that actually spells, they pulled the hats. Well, the hats that were sold, the hats that are out on the market, well, the resale value for those hats is pretty high. Casey, pop that up on the screen. Elliot, I thought you'd get a kick out of this. Look at this. Look, the TETAS hats are just, I mean, that's quite the resale value. Would you spend $1,000 on a TETAS hat? Are you going all in to get a hat that has, something derogatory written right across the front? Are you all in on that?
That's outrageous. I mean, that's just flat out outrageous. But good for those guys reselling that. I think it's a hilariously bad looking hat. And obviously, if you want to pay $1,000 for what that means in Spanish, then you go ahead and do it. But boy, what a horrible hat. I just don't know how that gets through all the production and all the people that have to come up with these ideas, and it gets through all of them, and they're like, let's just have the name of the team and then have the logo covering the name of the team, and let's see if that works somehow. And then we finally get to the point where we can sell them, and now it's like, you ever see the movie Morbius? You ever see the movie Morbius, Kenner? Morbius was a hilariously bad superhero movie, but it made a decent amount of money because people would go see it as a joke. That's what these hats are. They're being sold as jokes. Which honestly, if I knew that was the case going in, then I might have been bought in on them.
So two things. One, if you've ever stepped foot in a Lids or any hat shop that sells New Era hats, there's no shortage of just silly looking hats. Like, there is no shortage of just the craziest looking. You're like, you didn't even understand that they made Reds hats look like that. Truly. So that isn't surprising. What is surprising are those people selling those hats on secondhand sites. Why are they not just including? Why are they not putting free delivery? Everyone knows what a bad businessman you are. You're going to pay $1,000 and then have to pay $7 for delivery. Just take that out of your own pocket, man. Come on, have some showmanship here. You know how if I'm buying a hat and you're going to make me pay $7 of delivery, I'm not going to buy it from you. I'm going to find the person that's doing free delivery. It's the same price, but it just works in my brain. So bad showmanship between those guys that have the Titas hats.
Yeah, you got to, By the way, you said $1,000 is too high. Luckily, there's somebody that's not trying to rob their customers. $750, $750 hairs, and Titas could be yours.
Did you see what they did, too? Free delivery.
Oh, no,
oh boy.
Free delivery. They get it.
Did it say free delivery? We'll take a look. Let's take a look at it. I mean, look. Yeah, you're right. Oh, and then, by the way, it's $750 or best offer. Or best offer.
Oh, so
$4 for
$25. Yeah. Take it or leave it.
Maybe. All you have to do is ask. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. We'll continue on. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kenner, Elliot Rearing. No Jacob Tissett today. He is out, not feeling good, under the weather. That's why we got Reed Mouse hanging out with us here today. We always appreciate when he comes out of the bullpen and hangs out with us, which, by the way, just so he is clear, the bullpen is not the only way he can come onto the show. There is that extra seat. We always like to remind him of that. We do like to remind him of that.
No. I know you like to fib sometimes. You like to stretch that truth, but I'm not standing for it today.
We like to forget that part of my contract negotiation was I'll sign, Trace. I'll come in and host, but no Reed. No Reed.
You wouldn't be the first. Don't
forget. And yes, Casey McAllister holding it down as well. He has a busy day. We have Dialed In coming up right after this as well on Chatterbox on YouTube, by the way. So for our radio listeners, by the time you're listening to this, you would have probably missed it, but you can go back. We're going to have Terry Francona on Dialed In with Tom Brenneman and Luke and Casey coming up later on this afternoon as well. So pretty good stuff there. We got a jam-packed couple hours for you here on this show and Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, Luke Brenneman, Casey McAllister, and yes, new Reds manager Terry Francona. We got all of that coming up for you here. But let's talk a little Bearcats. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench next. All right, we welcome you back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, and of course, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. The Cincinnati Bearcats, after winning their first-round matchup in the Big 12 tournament, and they did it in convincing fashion, it had a lot of Bearcats fans feeling a little excited that, okay, you put the regular season, you underachieved in the regular season, there's no doubt about it, but you put that behind you. All of a sudden, you get a little inspired play when you get to that win or go home portion of the season. We saw that in round one. Unfortunately, didn't see that in round two. The Bearcats season possibly, maybe, comes to an end with a 76-56 20-point loss against number 12 Iowa State in yesterday's second-round matchup in the Big 12 tournament. And, of course, just when Elliott started to get a little bit more, happy and excited about the Bearcats, I didn't buy all the way in, but I was like, there's something there. The whole reason that Bearcats fans are pissed off is because you come in, you're ranked in the preseason AP poll coming in. There's a lot of talent on this roster. You saw how well they finished out the season last year. Like there was a lot of justifiable reasons to be excited about what the Bearcats could have possibly done this season. No doubt about it. Then they get that top 25 win against Dayton in December, and it just felt like things were kind of trending in the right direction. And then Big 12 play got there, and then it kind of all fell out from underneath them, and that's where we kind of sit here right now. If they don't get into the NCAA tournament, which I don't see any way that they do at this point, that means they have still yet to make the NCAA tournament since Mick Cronin left for the UCLA job back after the 2019 season. Obviously, John Brannon's been the head coach since then. Obviously, Wes Miller has been here for a few years. A lot of expectations this year. They fall just short. Elliott, disappointing finish yesterday. Wasn't competitive. They lose by 20. Now, again, they hung around a little bit as they kind of came back, but obviously Iowa State pulls away late. A 20-point loss, season coming to an end. How are you feeling at this point about how the season came to an end yesterday?
Yeah, it was a fitting end. It was a fitting end. They looked uncompetitive. Their offense is terrible. If you watch them play, I don't understand how their offense is. We're going to have five guys outside the three-point line, and then we're going to have Jizzle or Day-Day toss up the most contested, off-balanced, long two-pointer you'll ever see in your entire life. And that's essentially how we score. That's the only way. If they make big shots contested just inside the three-point line, then we'll win the game. But if they can't do that consistently, it's just not going to happen. I'm astounded by how quickly the Cincinnati Bearcats are able to blow leads or blow big moments. They were down 3 points. I'm not kidding. I started to say uh-oh, here they come, and you blink and they're down 10 again. It's astounding, truly. Wes Miller is an utter failure. Wes Miller absolutely failed, and this is per Lance McAllister. This is a good stat I found. Or I think Jacob actually sent it in to me. Excluding his record versus quad 4 teams, 37-1, and D2 teams, 2-0. Wes Miller is now 42-57 in 4 seasons with the Bearcats if you take away quad 4 and D2 games. He's 42-57. He has a losing record in the Big 12. He's got a losing record at home in the Big 12. This is the stuff of nightmares. The only reason he's here at this moment is because I don't think the Bearcats have the funds to fire him. That's it, and that's probably a tough place to be. His press conference antics don't help anything. Again, I'm not one to blame a coach for going off the rails, or at least having the same type of coach speak at each thing. That's why everybody hated David Bell. That's why they hated Marvin Lewis, and they hate Wes Miller for the same thing. A coach is going to say the same stuff after every game, win or lose. It's just because what do you want him to say? He's not going to go. He's not going to be the Dan Hurley and just start cussing out everybody. It's just not going to happen. Very few coaches are like that. But part of that is the reason why fans here don't like him. And this season we brought everybody back, and we built onto it. We got a few more guys. I know Wes likes to poach players from the NIT. We'll see if he does that again this year. But we added on to a roster that we thought was pretty good, and they regressed. Every single player got significantly worse. Every player, maybe except for Day-Day. Day-Day competed, but boy, it was pretty frustrating to watch all year long. Dan Skilling's a guy who I think led them in scoring last year. I think he averaged 15 a game. He wasn't even close. He didn't play because of effort. Simas Lukosius was being benched because of effort. Couldn't make a jump shot. We have guys like Dylan Mitchell who shot 40%, 38% at the free throw line all year. That stuff, it's I don't know who to blame it on. 38% at the free throw line seems like it could be fixed. I don't know how it can be fixed. He shot 60% at Texas before transferring in. He shot 38. He lost his percentage by half. when he got to Cincinnati. It just doesn't make sense. It's a complete disappointment and another failure. If you had to grade the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball season, it would be an F. They legitimately failed. There's nothing to build on. Half the roster is going to leave after this year. So I guess that's the only positive, really, is that it's going to be a completely different team next year, with the exception of maybe Day-Day and Josh Reed. That's where I am.
Fair enough. The Bearcats, again, ranked in the AP preseason poll. Keegan Nickerson, who we've had on the show in the past, put this out on X, that they're the first Bearcat team since 1977 to be ranked in the AP preseason poll and miss the NCAA tournament. Again, Selection Sunday's this Sunday. They're not gonna. Their name will not be called on Sunday, no doubt about it. Now,
I don't know. ESPN likes our chances.
The ESPN metrics, definitely, no doubt. But there's the NCAA tournament, the NIT, and then of course that big Vegas tournament, which is a weird one because that one, while the NIT will tip off next week along with the NCAA tournament, that Vegas was not going to tip off till towards later at the end of the month. So that's like 19 days away. That's a lot of time for players to still have chances to practice and for coaches to have time with their team. But what team? How many? You just said it. I mean, half this roster could potentially leave. Like, how do you keep a roster intact for another 19 days before we could even get to that point? I am curious, how that's going to be possible. So yesterday, Scott Springer in the post game, we've had him on the show here before as well. He asked Wes Miller, obviously, just thoughts on the season coming to an end, and does he anticipate, having enough players to be eligible to play in any postseason tournament? Take a look.
Coach, what happens from here, assuming you go to the Crown tournament that's 19 days away? What does the schedule look like? I'm sure you haven't really wrapped your head around that, but it's a long time.
Yeah, no, the thing that we've been focused on is trying to play in the NCAA tournament, and I think we were 40th in the net before we played Kansas State at home less than a week ago, right? So it felt within reach. You come here, we felt like we could play with everybody in this league and make a run here. So that's been we haven't talked about anything past that at this point. And I think the thing that I told our guys in the locker room is, and Jizzle just echoed it a little bit, is listen, man, we're disappointed to be in the position we're in. We felt like we had a team that could make a run in the NCAA tournament, not just before the season started, but a bunch of points throughout the year. The thing that I implored each of them to do, and I think we need to do the same thing as a staff, every one of us, is to take what we experienced this year and learn from it. Like this can be a very, very valuable thing for all of us moving forward if we'll learn from it. There's a lot of lessons to be learned this year. And to me, that's again, my mindset right now is there. And my mindset is, getting this team back to Cincinnati.
Would you have enough if you got into another tournament?
I hadn't thought about it, Scott. I hadn't thought about anything other than the NCAA tournament at this point.
I don't believe you, but that's besides the point. First of all, we'll get to that in a second. I do have to ask you, Elliot, just your thoughts. Like, what lessons? There's a lot there's a lot of lessons to learn here. Like, stop. This goes back to the coach speak thing. This is where it's like, you're almost like insulting the intelligence of your fan base. Like, we're not buying in to the fact that there's lessons to be learned here. You underachieved. You did not even come close to accomplishing the goals that were set out coming into a year where you ranked in the top 25 coming into the season. You have a ton of talent on this roster. You had a great finish to last season. What lessons were to be learned here? I don't know how there could be positives taken from this. I also know what else is the coach supposed to say, but I just, coach speak drives me up the wall, as we were just talking about. Like, what lessons? There's no lessons to be learned from here.
I don't know. I think there's a couple lessons. The 5 Ds of dodgeball: dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. There's a couple lessons out there for the Bearcats roster to have learned this season. As for what he said there, that was nonsense. I mean, the fact that he was focused on March Madness as his team doesn't try, and he makes it a very big point in these post-game preferences that they have no effort. I find that hard to believe. But the Bearcats lost to, I believe it was, or they beat UCF 93-83. They had to win that game. After that game, there was 9 games left, and we said all you got to do here is go 7-2. If maybe 6-3 can get you in. They went 4-5 in that stretch. They had no big wins. I mean, I guess if you want to count BYU, yeah, it's a big win. It's a D1 or it's a quad 1 win. Outside of that, there was really nothing to be excited about. I believe the rule is, and again, the Crown rules are weird to me. Yes, they will be contractually obligated to play, but there's a caveat where you have to have 7 active scholarship players available to you, right? Connor Hickman injured, so he's not available. I don't know how many of these guys would be willing to play. If I was an agent of one of these players like Jizzle, I certainly would not be wasting my time in that tournament risking injury as I try to venture a new deal in the NIL. So it'll be interesting for sure. I'd imagine they'd have at least 6, but I don't know about more than that. I know CMOS, I know Aziz would play, Day would play. I'd imagine Rayvon would play. That's 4. Outside of those guys, Dylan Mitchell maybe. I mean, I think they'd probably have enough players. But again, it's the fact that we have to sit here and pretend like they were even in contention at the end is sad, because they had every opportunity in the world to do it, and every single time they failed. And that's on Wes Miller. That's on the coach. That's also on the players. I'm not like nobody gets a free pass here. It's just a massively underwhelming and disappointing season. And I don't know how you can look at next year and be optimistic. Sean Abayev's great, first 5-star in school history, great. Who's going to pass him the ball? Who's going to score outside of him? You have to score 70 points. I mean, this Bearcats team surely didn't, but usually you got to score 70 points in the Big 12. This is a competitive league. You got to at least have some semblance of an offense. They didn't have an offense this year. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I don't know if Wes Miller's the guy to do it.
I truly didn't know the rules to the Crown. I didn't know that it doesn't start for 3 weeks, you said, 19 days. How the heck, if you're Wes Miller and you're the coach, like Elliot said, like you said, these kids are going to start hitting the portal. They're going to start wandering around trying to find a new team. How the heck do you get kids to show up to practice? Like, I genuinely don't understand how, like, a team that was at one point the 14th team in the country that had March Madness aspirations show up and give, not a cliche here, not a pun, but the old college try to practice for the next 3 weeks before you go to Vegas. It's really hard to imagine.
I believe one of the incentives they're offering is $1 million for NIL for those that compete, and maybe they split that up. No. I think it's per team, as far as I know.
Sign me up. I'll go play.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But Wes wants to practice. Wes wants to keep, like, if you're a coach, you don't just phone it in. That's in your blood. You want to go out and you want to practice. You want to get better every day, especially because you know that some things that you do over the next 3 weeks can benefit the guys that are going to be around next year. You can get better today for next year. But those kids, I wouldn't want to play.
No, there'd be no reason. And every coach in the world would turn this down. Every coach that's had success. The issue is he's had no success, so he takes little victories in these NIL or these NIT runs and the Crown runs. So I'm sure Wes is dying to play in it, because obviously nobody wants to just sit here and watch fake postseason basketball. And no disrespect, but that's what it is.
So when the college football playoff, from a football perspective, I remember a lot of the criticisms of you would have like your selection Sunday for the college football playoff, and it was at 4 teams, like December 7th. It was always like that first Sunday in December. And then you would tell those 4 teams that made the playoff, all right, well, we'll see you in a month, because you won't play till New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, whatever. There was a lot of those coaches who, by the way, they have something to play for, right? Their motivation over the next 3 or 4 weeks is to prepare for the playoff. But a lot of those coaches would say it's still hard to keep 18 to 21, 22-year-olds, to keep their eye on the prize and to keep them motivated and to keep them fighting. You got to tell them for 3 weeks, we're not going to play anybody. Like a bye week is tough to manage in the middle of a season for these young guys. Mm-hmm. And now you got to tell them for 3 weeks, you're not going to play in a meaningful game whatsoever. And that's for a playoff. That's the actual thing that you were playing for, the college football playoff. Now you're telling these kids that, all right, well, for 3 weeks, we're not going to play a game, which is a long time, and you need to be motivated and practice and play hard to prepare for an ancillary, basically, a consolation prize tournament. How motivated are these guys going to be? I think this is bad. I think it's putting coaches in a bad spot, programs in a bad spot, tournament. This is just silly. 19 days, now 18 days, technically, 18 days after yesterday, but still, this is just ridiculous. I think it's silly. I think it's silly, to be honest with you.
Listen,
I don't see it going well.
Sir, Mouse Cop just put in the chat that he believes that the players get that NIL money. So you do have an incentive. You go out there and play.
Fair.
It reminds me, tell me if you've heard this story before. A plucky team down on its luck joins a tournament in Las Vegas, Nevada, and competes for a cash prize to keep its beloved doors open. This is the plot of Dodgeball, a true underdog story. The Bearcats, it's coming full circle. Who's Patches? Wes Miller is Patches' old Houlihan. He's Patches' old Houlihan. What about this? Who's Vince Vaughn?
I guess Vince Vaughn would be Day-Day. Vince Vaughn's Day-Day.
Who are the Cobras? Who is White Goodman? I guess we'll see the Crown tournament.
I hate
this.
This
Is
bit.
Wes Miller Patches. Patches old Houlihan is he might get crushed by a sign in the casino by the end of the movie, but they'll win the tournament. Just calling it.
Wes Miller would be the exact one that you would expect to say, no one makes me bleed my own blood. Well, that is the ultimate post-game conference for Wes Miller. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. That's Wes Miller. It has him written. That's a great point. Reed. And now I'm jacked up. Let's go. Bring on the Crown. Let's go. 18 days.
I'm happy everybody else gets to be happy. That's what I'm happy about. The Bearcats, by the way, and you asked a question before that. I in terms of why would they want to play, how do you keep them motivated? You wouldn't, because they don't have effort when the games in the regular season happen. Why would they have effort during the 3-week vacation they get right before the historic Crown Invitational? They wouldn't have any effort, and they wouldn't play, and they wouldn't care. So I think it's all a joke. And good luck to anybody who competes in that, I guess. It better not be the Bearcats.
They're gonna compete.
I don't think so. I think they're gonna find a loophole. They're gonna find a loophole.
Listen,
we are not gonna live out the plot of Dodgeball. We are not gonna.
Yes,
do
they
it.
are. Wes might not be Patches old Houlihan. He might actually be White Goodman, and he understands that the money that they can win could be good for. He doesn't want them to be shackled by the coach's player kind of communication. In case you're into that sort of thing, then in that case, I got some shackles in the back. Seriously, but really, I got them.
That's pretty good. Who do you think's our Michelle?
Aziz.
What can go wrong, by the way, sending a bunch of unmotivated 18 to 22-year-olds to Vegas with thousands of dollars and nothing serious to play for? What can go wrong?
I love their chances. I love their chances.
Jermaine Burton says he's coming too. He's hopping on the flight.
He's their new general manager right now.
I throw this show off the rails when I come on.
Xavier going to be in action coming up around the corner as well. We'll talk about them. The chances, Xavier, the state's only chance of getting a team with an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament with Selection Sunday coming up this weekend. We'll get to that and more. Plus, Reed, you weren't on the show this day, but I was surprised how much backlash I got when I said I don't really care about conference tournament week, because so many coaches I've talked to have said that they don't really care about conference tournament week, at least for the high major coaches. Mid-major coaches, this is their life. This is their season. You know, it's October, November, December, January, February is preseason. Those 5 months prepare them for 1 week when you're a mid-major. But when you are these high major programs, these conference tournaments almost just they're dangerous. They're risky. We'll talk about that because Calipari, he had a lot to say, and of course he's been getting backlash. Maybe I shouldn't side with Calipari on anything. He said a lot of goofy stuff recently. But we'll get to all of that when we come back. More Off the Bench next. Well, the Bearcats, they got beat up in the Big 12 tournament yesterday, and then, according to ESPN's Joe Lunardi, there were two teams that were on the bubble. In fact, two teams that he had in the first four. In fact, in the latest bracketology from ESPN's Joe Lunardi, he had Xavier and Ohio State going head-to-head at UD Arena in the first four next week. So I was pretty excited about that. I was really hoping that could have been one of the potential matchups, but I think Ohio State shot themselves in the foot yesterday. They lose to Iowa, 87-80 the final there. 10 seed loses to a 15 seed. I mean, just brutal for Jake Diebler and the Buckeyes. Again, another team that was, ranked at one point that ultimately misses the tournament. I mean, is there a chance that they get in? Possibly. I doubt it. I don't understand how Ohio State can still get an at-large bid at this point. I think that they needed the Big Ten tournament to go on a little run just to give themselves a little extra padding. I think they shot themselves in the foot yesterday. Cincinnati shot themselves in the foot yesterday. Dayton, I don't think, has enough remaining. I mean, they would have to win the A-10 tournament to get into the NCAA tournament, and they haven't won the A-10 tournament since 2003, and they did that on their home floor. They don't do well in these A-10 tournaments, especially on neutral sites. So I don't see Dayton getting into the NCAA tournament. Definitely not an at-large bid at this point. So there's only one team left that could save the state of Ohio of actually getting an at-large bid, and that's the Xavier Musketeers. That's Reed's Xavier Musketeers. So, Reed, they have Marquette coming up later on this afternoon. I think it's about a 2:30 tip-off. How are we feeling about your Musketeers' chances in this Big East tournament right now? Is Sean Miller and Xavier safe? Are they in? Are we going to hear their name called on Selection Sunday?
They're safe as of now. It's been the season and even the last week has kind of been a whirlwind because after – the Muskies finish out the season the way they did, knowing that they had to win, go on that, an 8-game win streak, and they did it. They did all that stuff, won some good games along the road. You felt pretty safe, but then you look at Bracket Matrix and all these brackets to see where Xavier fits, and across Bracket Matrix, the final two teams almost in everyone's bracket were Ohio State and Xavier. Now, depending on which bracket you looked at, those two teams were flip-flopped. Either Xavier was the last team in or Ohio State was the last team in. But because Ohio State lost yesterday in a game that they were supposed to win, it seems like Xavier has a little bit extra breathing room. I don't want to come out here and say things like, oh, they're for sure in at this moment, because I think there's a big game today at 2:30 against Marquette, a game that they're going to be an underdog in, that they are an underdog in, and obviously we split with Marquette this season, so we'll see. Feels like Xavier's playing better at this very moment. We match up pretty well with Marquette, which is a good thing. I was talking with Paul, and he kind of rang home all those sentiments that he'd rather play Marquette than UConn. He'd rather, just because not only the stadium's going to be, or the arena, Madison Square Garden, isn't going to be filled up with Marquette fans like it would with UConn fans, but we also match up better with them. So it's going to be interesting. I will say this, you've also got to look at the rest of the conference tournaments, because like you mentioned the A-10, VCU's going to get in the tournament. Virginia Commonwealth's going to get in the tournament. So you can't have anybody else from the A-10 win the A-10, get an automatic bid, because that leaves one less at large to get. You can't have too many bid stealers, because that makes it really tough on Xavier. But you really, really, really got to like where you're at. If you win today's game at 2:30, even if you lose, I don't think it kills you. Like, I don't think that knocks you off the bubble. Makes it a little more difficult, but if you win, you really got to like where you're at. So, I don't know. It remains to be seen. The only team with Ohio State getting knocked off is maybe North Carolina can make a decent run in the ACC, and they give themselves a really a good resume to be like, all right, how can you leave North Carolina out? And as we know, when it comes to the first four, they like selling tickets. They do. And Xavier, they're going to sell some tickets, but North Carolina is too. Ohio State's going to sell tickets. At one point, I don't know where Indiana is. I feel like they're pretty much in there. They like selling tickets there. I even asked the question, what happens if the first four, you want to talk about selling tickets. They had a chance to have Ohio State versus Xavier be one game, and Notre Dame versus North Carolina, or Indiana versus North Carolina be the other game. That's a heck of a first four. But to sum up what you asked me, I like where Xavier's at. Obviously, we got some help with Ohio State losing yesterday. Those Buckeyes always come through for me. And we'll see what happens today at 2:30. It's a good matchup for Xavier. We're playing better than Marquette. We match up well with them. We're not playing a UConn that's going to have Madison Square Garden cheering for them. So all those good things.
I don't know. I think Xavier would be in. Reed mentioned it, though. Bid stealers are the one thing that can take him out. I think that if you win today or lose today, I don't think it does a ton for where they still rank in the last four in. I think they're going to be a last four in team as of this very second. Now, if they could go on and win the whole thing. I think Xavier's playing good basketball, probably the third best basketball in the Big East. But I do think that if as long as you win this game, I would say no. I would say there's 0.0% chance it'd be another quad one win. So I don't know how you take that away from them.
Well, the way that if they win this game, the only way that they are getting kicked out is if there's a bunch of bid stealers. That's the only way.
Correct.
If a bunch of teams that shouldn't be in the tournament are winning their conference tournament, the A-10 is a big one, as I mentioned, because VCU is a tournament team, regardless of if they win the A-10 or not. I know they're near the bubble, but they're going to make the tournament even if they don't win the A-10. So A-10 has a chance.
Just don't get knocked out early. Just you got to win at least one A-10 tournament game, but at least they have that.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Box.
I don't know who they play. If they lose like a quad 3 game, then that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. But I think VCU is more than likely. In fact, I'm looking at Bracket Matrix right now, and they're in 100% of the brackets at this very moment. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just you just got to hope that there's not a lot of bid stealers. Yeah. There were a lot last year. There were. But these things it is random, so I'm not going to predict anything. But if you win tonight, you locked up sans a bunch of bid stealers. You locked up your place in the tournament. Like, you don't have to build a resume anymore.
Indiana does play today. Indiana takes on Oregon. Oklahoma takes on Kentucky tonight. Those are teams that are in the mix with Xavier as well. So as many losses, as many bubble losses as Xavier can get, they'll take.
North Carolina is a team to watch out for. But, like, Indiana's weird because, like, there's some brackets that have them missing Dayton altogether, which is – I don't know what the heck they do with Mike Woodson. But, yeah, we'll see.
So I updated Lenardi's bracketology. I forgot we're at the point now where he updates it daily. So he has Xavier as a 12 seed. That didn't change. Yesterday he had Xavier and Ohio State paired up in that 12 seed matchup at UD Arena in the first four. He does still have Xavier in the first four going up against North Carolina. So North Carolina jumped Ohio State into that spot. San Diego State as the other. They have the 11 seed matchup against Mike Woodson's Indiana Hoosiers. So there's that. But VCU is a strong 11 seed, according to Joe Lenardi, going up against 6 seed UCLA in his latest bracketology report. So just something to kind of give an idea of kind of how that's all falling into place either way. Yeah, you mentioned Mike Woodson. Like, what does Indiana do there? I know Mike Woodson last week said, well, maybe I shouldn't have said I was leaving, but he's gone. We were joking before the show. It kind of reminded me of that Lamar Jackson's rookie season with the Ravens.
No doubt.
If you guys remember, like, the Ravens had come out, they didn't fire John Harbaugh. They come out and just said, hey, that at the end of this season, okay, we are going to part ways with Harbaugh. He's going to go in a different direction. We're going to go in a different direction. Then Joe Flacco gets hurt. Then Lamar Jackson comes in. The Ravens win out, make the playoffs, and then the future all of a sudden looks super bright because the quarterback they drafted that everyone wanted to be a wide receiver actually looked like he could play the damn position, and I'd say the guy's pretty damn good at this point. Harbaugh, everyone forgets about that. I'm not saying that this Indiana situation is exactly the same, but you said it, Reed. They'd have to at least get to a Final Four before you have to have that discussion.
There is no discussion to be had other than it's kind of funny that he made himself a lame duck coach. He said, I'm leaving at the end of this year. And then they likely will make the tournament. And if they go on a run, you don't even begin to have the conversation of, maybe we should rethink this until we're in. I mean, I'm saying the Elite Eight is the beginning of the conversation. Like, there'll be rumors if they make it to the second weekend, if they make it to the Sweet 16, and you're just like, all right, what do we do with Mike Woodson? But you'd have to win that Sweet 16 game. Like, all right, now really what do we do with Mike Woodson? Because I don't think he's ever made it past the second round as the Hoosiers coach. The best team he had was that Trace Jackson-Davis team a couple years ago, and I think they ended up losing to Laranaga's Miami in the second round. So, yeah, I don't know who's going to get that job, but it's quickly becoming a graveyard over there in Bloomington.
All right, real quick. So Lenardi has Marquette, who's playing Xavier, coming up later on today in the Big East tournament. He has Marquette as an 8 seed going up against Arkansas, which is led, of course, by John Calipari. John Calipari caught a lot of heat, not from Kentucky fans, of course. Oh, it's always Kentucky fans, but he caught a lot of heat from Arkansas fans yesterday. Arkansas was on the bubble for a while. They've played well as of late. They're sitting at a 9 seed, depending on which bracketology that you look at. But he said something recently that kind of pissed off a lot of Arkansas fans by basically saying the conference tournament doesn't matter. Do you agree, disagree? That's not the silliest thing he has said this week, by the way. We'll get to that when we come back, more off the bench when we return. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and no Jacob Tissett today because we got Reed Mouse. Jacob's not feeling well, so hope Jacob starts feeling better. But we are glad to have Reed in here today. So, Reed, we appreciate you. We've got a lot of college basketball today, so it's a good show to have you on. We're even going to talk some baseball coming up. This show was meant for you, and even some Bengals around the corner. This was the Reed Mouse show today.
The one thing that I'm really good at talking is college basketball. The second thing that I'm really good at talking is Cincinnati Reds. So like this is right.
So you don't like college basketball? Maybe not. My bad.
No, you put it right in my wheelhouse, and I knocked it out of the park, baby. Let's go.
Right down the middle. But we got a super chat.
Go ahead.
We got a super chat, right?
This is from a realtor named House. Formerly Chi-Town Real Estate. Well, actually, it could be currently Chi-Town Real Estate, but he changed his name in the chat.
He's my comrade.
That's his comrade. He likes to see my socks. Been a minute since I've thrown money at the ladies on stage. Love y'all. So we are the ladies on stage. Thank you, Adam.
Or maybe he's throwing money at the ladies on stage right now while he's watching the show. I don't know.
Boy,
it's all about
10:59 on a Thursday, huh?
Well, if he is at the
you got there late.
Well, I was gonna say if he is, he just lost $10. You could have some fun with $10 at a club.
Especially for the 11 a.m. crowd. I'm just
oh yeah,
it is. It's a cheaper crowd there, and you can tell. Yep. You can tell. It shows. Not that I've ever been.
So for those wondering what's going to happen next week regarding the show, we will be back at Champions Grill. Champions Grill with an E on Work Road with an E. So we will all be there, I think. That's our plan. We will all be there at Champions Grill. Now, I had a discussion with Tim, manager of Champions, yesterday, a long discussion of what the plan was going to be. What's going to happen is we're going to do an off-the-bench show beforehand, and we're going to then stream games on our YouTube, or stream us watching games and with all our bets and stuff on our YouTube. We'll be at Champions Grill for at least the first several games there. So come down, see us, have some fun. This is an interesting wrinkle. We will be there before the bar opens. 10 a.m. is before the bar opens, so we will be in there. And Tim has given me access. Anybody who calls off work will be allowed in the restaurant with us, and you will just have the restaurant with us before the bar opens.
Ooh, should we get one of those permission slips that they always bring out? Like, hey, here's a permission slip. We give permission for whoever, for Mouse Cop to miss work on whatever day.
Yes. So keep that in mind. That'll be next Thursday back at Champions Grill for all of you guys and for all of us. It'll be very, very fun. Some things going on at Champions right now. St. Patty's Day party that starts Saturday. It runs through Monday. Buckets of 16-ounce aluminum bottles, 6 for $15 all weekend long. Buckets of 16-ounce garage line, 5 for $20, green beer, green three-ways, and bagpipes. I think they might get Reed to do bagpipes on Monday as well for all the St. Patrick's Day celebration. But again, Thursday, we will be there to stream all the games. So we're going to do some Champions Grill return segments there.
What are green three-ways?
It's a three-way that's green.
Wouldn't you like to know? If you're asking, you ain't got the money for it, big guy.
I draw the line at green. I'm just saying.
You've never seen a green three-way?
No. Never mind. All right. Off the bench.
You got to pay extra for that.
Inflation, it impacts everywhere. Let's see, where are we at? Oh yes, we're doing a sports show. My bad. But we do appreciate Champions. Champions been great. They're great through the NFL season. It's cool they're having us out next Thursday to kick off the NCAA tournament. So, or that tournament where a bunch of college teams play basketball. I never know the rules of what we're allowed to call it. They get all territorial about that stuff. But either way, hey, Reed, how do you feel about conference tournaments like the Big 12 tournament, not mid-major conferences? That's the only way they can punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament. But this was like a big debate that me, Reed, and Elliot, and Jacob got into months ago when I said that I don't really care about the conference tournament week because a lot of coaches I've spoke to said they don't care about the conference tournament week when it comes to, of course, winning a conference tournament championship. Obviously, as we know, college basketball is all about the NCAA tournament. Obviously, how deep into the tournament you can go, national championships, that type of stuff. How much weight do you give conference tournaments for high major programs?
I don't know that answer because, if you're a SEC team that's already going to make the tournament and you're the 7th seed in the SEC tournament, then why would you it's hard to get up because all you're thinking is, I've got to play 4 or 5 games in 5 days. That's a high risk for someone to get hurt. That's a lot of turnaround. You are playing good competition, so I understand that point from coaches. But you got to also remember that the reason that these sports generate money is because there's fans, and conference championships are objectively awesome for us. They are objectively really cool for us that there's going to be games all day today between almost every college basketball program in the country, and they're all fighting, some of them fighting for a chance to make the tournament. I do like when it comes to the mid-majors, you mentioned it, that's how you get into the tournament, and you're right. I do like when they change up the format of their tournaments because you have free rule over how you're going to do it. The Sun Belt and the West Coast Conference does the gauntlet, making the champion of the regular season most likely to come through, and that's the way it should be. You should give credence to those things. But just because teams like Arkansas and Coach Calipari, who's on a hot streak of wise things said at press conferences, just because they don't care about it doesn't mean that we shouldn't think it's freaking awesome, because it is freaking awesome. The fact that at Madison Square Garden there's going to be 4 basketball games played today, that's pretty cool. The fact that there's going to be a bunch of Big 10 teams and a bunch of SEC and a bunch of Big 12 games today, that's freaking awesome. And then if you're a gambler like most people in this room are, that makes it even cooler. So I think it's awesome. I understand fully where coaches are coming from when they say, hey, I'm already in the tournament. I don't want to play 4 or 5 games over 4 days before we start playing the most meaningful games of the year. I fully understand that. It's a high risk, it's a high injury risk, all those great things. But as a fan, it's pretty cool. So that's where I'm at with it.
It's what makes college basketball. This week is what makes college basketball the best sport, in my opinion. The best or the most fun to watch. Because you have teams that you've never heard of competing in games that mean the entire world to every single player and coach out there. I understand, like what Reed just said, the bigger schools that, the 1 seeds that have already clinched, they've already won the regular season title for their conference. I understand not having as much motivation to win this event or to win a conference tournament. I get all that. But for a large majority of the country, these mean the entire world. It means the world to the fans. I was talking with my buddy the other day, and it was like, could you imagine being a fan of like Lipscomb and just and like, I don't know how many fans of Lipscomb there are, but being in that arena, knowing that that game is essentially your Super Bowl, and then the game after that's your Super Bowl, and then for the next few games up until you make the tournament or miss the tournament, every single game weighs as much as it could possibly weigh. Again, I know I'm focusing on the smaller market schools, but NC State last year, NC State was one of the most fun stories in college basketball. They went on a miracle run in March, won their conference. They shouldn't have won it, and they went dancing, went all the way to the Final Four. So like that's what
their coach a year later.
They did.
They fired their coach.
They did. They did. But that's kind of like what I'm saying. Like that's why it means so much, and that's why it's so cool to have games tip off. I don't know when the first game is. 11:30 today. 12. It's fun to have your sport play all day and take over a couple weeks.
So no, and first of all, yeah, for the mid-major conferences, absolutely. Like this week is everything. By the way, I understand why you have to give the auto bid to the conference tournament winner, because what else would you be technically playing for? I guess just a tournament championship, and you get nothing. And that, I still feel like the regular season winning a regular season championship is way more impressive than just being a hot team for 1 week.
Correct. You're right.
But I know, like, for instance, like I always bring up the Horizon just because I work with that conference. But like that's a conference right there that, like, Robert Morris won the regular season conference and they won the tournament. So okay, good for them. They deserve to be in. They've definitely earned it. But like, had they lost, they dominate the regular season for 4 or 5 months, and then you have a bad day in the 1 week that matters the most, and now your whole season just gets thrown out the window, because now the NIT, because it used to be if you win the regular season and you don't win your conference tournament, you get the auto bid into the NIT. So at the very least, from a mid-major conference standpoint, you would get the auto bid into the NIT. Mm-hmm. You had at least a pillow to fall on. Now you're screwed. You win the regular season, you dominate your conference for 4 months, but you get upset at the buzzer. You get upset on one bad night. Now you have nothing to show for it. Like, good for Robert Morris for winning that conference, but had they got beat, they had nothing to show for this season. I think that's unfortunate. But I do know why you have to give the auto bid to the conference tournament winner, because these conference tournaments with money invested into them, what are you playing for at that point? So I get why they do it. But if you're a Kentucky winning the SEC tournament, that's great. That's cool. But I don't think they're not gonna have a parade. I don't think they're gonna hang a banner. They're not gonna do any of that stuff. Look at the 1 seeds. I think if you're seeds 1 through 6 or even 7, I don't even think you really care about these conference tournaments. You're competitive. You're a competitor, so you're gonna go out there and you're gonna compete. But if you lose, walk off the floor. Oh, well, right, can't wait for selection Sunday. Let's get the show on the road. And I think that's what Calipari was referring to here. Calipari, we have the video for you right here. Calipari was asked about his take on conference tournaments, and, of course, he said they don't matter. It ruffled a lot of feathers. Take a look.
Don't care about the conference tournament, which is why we won it so many times, because I could care less. The tournament that matters is the NCAA tournament. Now, you play that tournament to get the best seed you can get. And if you're going to get to the finals, win. Or don't go to the finals and lose because you're exhausted and you got to play on Tuesday or Wednesday. So I'm like, let's play well and try to improve our seed. I don't care about the...
I mean, he's getting so much heat, but he's not wrong. Like, especially if you're in a high major like the Arkansas, great. If they get to the SEC championship game, that's great. That's the best conference. I mean, this is arguably one of the best conferences in college basketball history when you look at how many teams are about to shatter the record for how many SEC teams get into the tournament on Sunday during Selection Sunday. So if you win that, there's going to be a lot of pride that comes with that. Don't get me wrong. But I think if they would have lost yesterday, I don't think Calipari would have cared. I think, okay, cool. Now we have 4 or 5 days off, more than that actually, because you don't play till next Thursday in the first round. I think a lot of coaches view it that way, but I do understand, because to Elliot's point, from a fan perspective, I don't care about those guys getting rest. From a fan perspective, I want to watch good basketball. I see the dividing line in this particular talking point.
I don't know why he got all mad. I feel like he yelled during the middle of that. I don't know what that was about. I think that like.
He's a passionate guy.
I guess he's passionate about not playing in conference tournaments.
Paisan.
I think that if you're Kentucky, which is where he was for so long, and you get every cool recruit, cool 5-star player in the world, and you're always in the tournament, and you're always going to be a top-tier seed, then yeah, I mean, I of course wouldn't care as much as everybody else. But I think it's kind of crazy. It's ludicrous for him to sit up there and say they don't matter. I mean, or he doesn't care about them at all, especially right now. I mean, I know that he's in the tournament, but borderline bubble, you don't want to be as good as you can be. I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Well, I don't think they're off the bubble. I think they're good. I think he's
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Well
That's what I'm saying. But it's like I still think like there's always room to improve. At least that's what I think. But maybe I'm wrong on I don't really know how the bracket makers when they get together on the committee and they weigh, that's kind of what Kinder was saying. How much do you weigh these games? How much do you weigh this for a resume? And I don't know that answer. So I'm not going to, maybe he does and I don't. So if he knows that these games don't matter a ton, but I think it's just crazy to be, not one of the best seeds and be like, all right, we can maybe improve our seed if we try hard and win these games.
Well, they've got to play them, so they're going to play them, right? They've got to play hard and all these things. But I think essentially what he says is like, if we didn't have to play these games, we wouldn't want to play these games because it's just stress on our bodies before we go to the biggest and most important time of the year, which is never what you want to do. I don't have a direct analogy, but it would be like getting ready to play an NFL playoff game and you got to do a doubleheader the week before. Like you don't get that extra rest. You've got to put your body through something extra, and it's important, so you're going to play it. But Kenner, I wanted to get your take because you were talking about the mid majors and how important it is, and Mousecott put in the chat, and he's right, is that these mid-majors have the right to choose how their auto bid works. Most of them choose to do the conference tournament because there's more eyes on it, and it's easier to sell to the TV networks when you do it that way. Are you in favor of the way that the Sun Belt and the West Coast Conference goes about seeding their tournament to make it to where if you win the regular season, which is harder, or I guess not harder, but more impressive. If you win your regular season, we make it easier for you and pretty much just hand you the championship unless some team goes through a gauntlet. The other reason I'd say that that's good is because when you are a mid-major conference, you want your best foot forward in the NCAA tournament. You don't want the fifth seed that was 500 in your conference, just get on a hot streak, win the tournament, and then they get blitzed by somebody in the first round of the tournament and lose by 60 just because they're just not up to par. If you're Drake, if you're the Missouri Valley Conference, you want Drake in there because they're your best team. Do you like the way that those conferences seed it?
I think the most important thing when you're in a mid-major conference is to protect your high seeds. So you brought up a good point. And Mousecott brings up a good point too. Those mid-major conferences, again, I'll use the Horizon just because I know a lot about how they operate with that. Yep. Barbasol it's the Barbasol Horizon League men and women's basketball championships. Barbasol they sponsor that tournament only because the conference tournament declares who gets in. They would not have sponsored that tournament if the regular season was put in. So it's a business decision to also make that conference tournament, decide the auto bid. So there's that side to it. The second most important thing with that tournament now becomes, okay, your one seed was Robert Morris, who ultimately won it, but you got to protect them, which means you got to give them home. If they got to play home games in the quarterfinal rounds, you got to give them the home games. You got to give them a bye. Some conference tournaments give you the auto bye just to the semifinal right away, and the Horizon League's done that in the past. The most important thing is to protect your higher seeds because you don't want what we love as fans is, oh man, that team that was the 8 seed makes a run and wins the tournament. That's so great. Anybody could win it. The conferences don't view it that way. They don't want that. They don't want that 13-win 8 seed to make a run and represent that conference in the NCAA tournament. Wright State made it back in 2018, and they played a 12-win Cleveland State team in the Horizon League championship. The league did not want Cleveland State to win that game. You don't want a 12 seed. You don't want a 12-win, 13-win team representing your team in the NCAA tournament. So they try to do their best to protect the high seeds. It doesn't always work out that way. They have to find that balance of good business to make money off those sponsorships, as you mentioned, and then also protecting your high seeds to hopefully have, the regular season reflect what you get out of your 1 week postseason. So it's a tough balance, and it's very tough to figure out.
Do you think more conferences will start doing what the Big Ten has done? And it's like, if you're really bad, they cut out the bottom teams. So if you I don't know, I think Penn State didn't make it. A couple of those teams didn't. Washington didn't make it. If you're the bottom 4 of each conference, you just don't get to compete in the tournament. Do you think more conferences should do that?
With expansion, yes. I think because
the power conferences have to do it. Yeah. The big ones have to do it. Like the Big 12, with all due respect to your beloved Bear Kitties, they shouldn't have played in that tournament. They were the 13th seed. It shouldn't go that deep.
So there you go. But yeah, I do think, yes, I'm fine with cutting out the fat at the bottom. Like, I mean, I think we're talking about the bottom 4 teams. Like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, it's tough for the best team in the Big Ten to win that Big Ten tournament. I'm not going to fight hard for the bottom 4. You had 4 months to prove that you are competitive enough to win a tournament. You weren't even competitive enough to finish outside of the bottom 4. So I'm fine with tournament teams doing that as well. But either way, last clip here. So Calipari. So yesterday, Arkansas, they do survive. So they had a 47-30 lead at halftime. All was well with Arkansas. They had a big lead over South Carolina at halftime. They get outscored 38-25 in the second half. South Carolina came storming back. But Chance Slight with Calipari, up 2. He tells his team to miss the free throw with like 4 or 5, or I think it was like 3 seconds left, whatever it was. They are up 2. He tells his team to miss the free throw so that South Carolina basically has a chance to heave a shot down the court. Very weird. Take a look. He's getting heat for this as well.
He tried to miss it. He shot it flat and banked it in. You're up 3, and there's 2 seconds to go. Miss it. By the time they get it, there's a second. Now, the other side of that is, what if they throw one deep and bank it in? But I've done it before, so I do some unconventional stuff. And he banked it in, and I was like happy.
Look, that guy's insane. I mean,
I feel like people want to hate him, but he's not wrong. So you make that shot.
No, he's not. What do you mean? He's completely wrong.
Yeah, he's wrong.
He's objectively wrong.
He's wrong, but he's not wrong. Like, no, I understand his thinking. With 7 seconds left, if you make that free throw, you now give South Carolina 2.7 seconds to get that inbounds pass in, maybe a dribble and a heave. If you miss that free throw, by the time they get the rebound, pull it down, now you have like 1.4 seconds. Now you just have to catch and heave. I understand what he's saying, but it's Calipari, and he brings on this criticism because he thinks he's the smartest man in the room. I don't think the logic is that far off, but because it's Calipari.
Kenner, if he makes the free throw, not only do they have 2.4 seconds, they get a dribble and do a heave, they then have to get the ball back. You have to do an inbounds pass. They have to foul you. And then guess what? Now they've got 0.6 seconds. So they've got to make 2.
Maybe 0.6. You're telling me a
94-foot shot.
A half court shot. I just looked at the NCAA rulebook. I don't think there's a 4-point shot. And until they get one, that's the most ludicrous.
So you get that whistle happy official.
Yeah, but you can pull your guys off. You pull your guys off the court. All of them will just go to the back corner. We'll all just sit in the back corner.
So Calipari is way smarter, knows way more about basketball than anybody in this room does. Truly does. You don't get to that level of success without understanding basketball at a much higher level than anybody in this room. That being said, he's just dead wrong about that.
Oh shit, my bad. Hold up, time out. I misread the whole situation.
It was to go up 2 possessions.
Go up 2. Okay. Hold on. My apologies.
Yeah.
I misunderstood that. I thought they were up 2, and they were about to make a free throw to make it up 3. That's where
it was a
2-possession
game.
My bad. Never mind. Sorry, guys. My bad. I misread that. My apologies.
There was 2 seconds. If they shoot any shot, no matter what distance, they lose because the time runs out. That's literally insane.
I didn't even think about the ball traveling. The ball takes 2 seconds to get down the floor. Like, try to make the shot.
Was he saying that if they do it on the inbounds pass, like if you do it on the inbounds pass, no time runs off?
He's unconventional.
It's honestly insane. It's honestly insane.
My bad. I truly I thought they were down 2 with a chance to go up 3. So that's where I was like, oh, I kind of get what he means. You go up 3, but they have 2.4 seconds to get the shot off. That's a lot more time than you think. You can get a dribble and a heave. But again, you had a chance to go up 4, 2 possessions.
Right.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. My bad, guys. I totally disagree with this. That was silly.
No, I'll defend you here. It's a true testament by how dumb of a thing that Calipari said is that you couldn't even comprehend that that's what he was talking about. Like, you're like, wait, it would be a 2-possession game. Like, you were trying to make sense of it and you couldn't get there. So it's that. I mean, once again, Calipari's he's a great basketball coach. You don't win as many games as you do without understanding the game, without knowing ball. That being said, you're just dead wrong there, Calipari. You're just dead wrong there.
My favorite though is, well, I'm unconventional. I think
unconventional. It is unconventional.
There's no way he knew this. I think he did what you did, Kenner. I honest to God think he didn't know the score of the game.
And he didn't want to admit that. It's better
Correct.
to say you're unconventional than to say I'm a veteran coach and didn't realize how much time was left or what the score was.
Because
or it goes back to what we talked about. He hates conference tournament games, guys. He wanted to lose. We figured it out.
There's no human with a brain that would intentionally miss that free throw. There's 1 second left. That's insane.
We onto something here? Maybe he just got done saying how much he hates conference tournaments. I think why finish it out? Why put the nail in the coffin when you could, maybe allow them to push the coffin lid up a little bit, Put them out of their misery. Give them that more time to rest so they're not tired. Because if you get to the finals, you better damn win it. You better win that damn championship. No, I'm just saying. But either way. Let's talk about Reed's Cincinnati Reds, shall we? Want to do that, Elliot? You want to talk about the Cincinnati Reds? All right. We'll be right back. More off the bench when we come back. Damn it, Calipari. My bad. Can't believe I misunderstood that situation that drastic. I wrote it wrong. I wrote down in my notes that they were had a chance to go up 3. Kenner's wrong. Classic. We welcome you back. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Hope our guy Jacob starts feeling better. He's out today. We're hanging out with our guy Reed. We always appreciate when Reed pops in. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and yes, Mr. Reed Mouse. Have any of you been out golfing yet with all this beautiful weather this week? Or have you been working?
Reed, you want to start that one?
I don't golf anymore, much to the chagrin of Everett Henry in the chat. And even though I'm wearing a Callaway hat, I don't golf anymore. I deemed it I'm not good enough, so I quit. Quit a long time ago.
I golfed once. I don't know, a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It was cold out. I haven't golfed yet in the good weather.
I haven't golfed since September. I golfed so bad it pissed me off, and I literally got in a huge fight with my wife last year because I bought clubs without asking her, and I was like adamant that my game was turning around. I was so jacked, and it was not a good move. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to go golf. She's mad at me, but I'm going to golf so well with these new clubs that, who cares? I'll just deal with the repercussions later. So now I have an angry wife before I leave for the golf course. Then I'm pissed because I golf like absolute crap at the golf course. Then I come back to angry wife, and then I have to deal with that and be reminded of how bad I am at golf. It's just I'm trying to forget that golf brings me misery more than it does happiness at the end of the day.
That's the thing about golf. Golf makes you really hate yourself a lot.
Well, it also makes your spouse hate you because you're not the only person that's ever played golf and came back with a wife mad at you. I think that's pretty much a universal male experience.
Back, babe, I know you're mad at me, but golf to 82 today, so I'm happy. You come back buzzed after golfing to 82, you feel pretty good about yourself. I'm fine with that, but I can't come back shooting in the hundreds, then her yelling at me, and then I'm in a bad mood already. It's just not a good recipe for success for the marriage. So
fair enough.
Cutting back on golf a little bit because I stink.
Colin Will says you left him on red when it came to playing golf.
He wanted to golf with you, Kenner.
He wanted to play at Hickory Sticks with you at Van Wert.
Oh, Hickory Sticks and Van Wert?
I've played it.
I mean, they kind of get – you have played. I forgot that you roam the streets there in that neck of the woods for a little bit.
I sure did.
Yeah. Heard a lot of great stories about me, I'm sure. I was a sports legend back in the day. Not really.
Van Wert
Nope.
native got Big Ten Sportsman of the Year, Sportsmanship Player, whatever that award is, Kalen Etzler for the Buckeyes. Yeah.
Yep.
He's from Convoy, but Van Wert.
But Van Wert will take credit for it when they
Correct.
can.
Correct.
All those neighborhoods, they just, whatever. Hey, Cincinnati Reds. So the Athletic, they ranked all 30 Major League Baseball franchises based on how competitive they have been the last 25 seasons. And what they've done is they used a point system. And, now I got to go back to my notes. My notes have failed me once today. Let's see if they fail me again. But so in the last 25 years, if you have won a World Series, you get 9 points. If you've lost the World Series, you get 6 points. If you lost in the championship series, you get 3 points. If you lost in the divisional series, you get 2. If you lost in the wild card, you get 1. If you won your division, you get a point. But if you had at any point in the last 25 years, if you've had consecutive 90-loss seasons, it's -1. So that's the scoring system. That's how they went through and combed through the resumes of all 30 MLB clubs for the last 25 years. And they came up with this ranking right here. Casey will pop that up. But the Cincinnati Reds coming in at number 28. The Reds scored 5 points. When you put it all together, you got to think with all the World Series appearances that the Reds have had with, the ones, remember that World Series that they lost, and then you remember that championship series that they got to and lost, and then the division, well, they did get to a division series a couple times. They lost that. 5 points. The Reds got 5 points based on the Athletics resume, or the survey that they put out in the scoring system. I think that adds up pretty right? Like the Reds, the third worst franchise in baseball over the last 25 years, according to this scoring prompt. Elliot, how do we feel about the Reds coming in with only 5 points? You can't argue. Those are that's the results. That's the facts right there. The Reds, third worst team in Major League Baseball over the last 25 years. Do you agree?
I feel great about it. I agree. They've been horrible. They've made the playoffs 4 times in 30 years. So yeah, I would say I'm pretty disappointed with the results. But I will say, Reed and I have a few arguments. The one that I will never concede is that the Reds are better than the Pittsburgh Pirates. So having them be a -42 right there on the -47 on that list, that really gives a smile to me. That's the only thing I take away from that list, because they are terrible. The Reds are a disgrace, and if you haven't been paying attention over the last 30 years, maybe you'd have a different opinion. But yeah, the Reds are an abomination to the sport.
Hey, I always defend the Buccos because the Buccos have a few things that the Reds do not. They have a 100-win season, and they've advanced in the postseason. Oh, yeah, it was against the Reds. So I always defend my Buccos. -4 is a tough look, though.
It's a -4.
It's a
-4
is a tough look. I will admit that some of those teams are surprising on that sheet. The Reds being down there wasn't that surprising to me. But some of the teams that are around them, like the Orioles, they've had some good years. Obviously, as of late, the mid-2010s, they were seemingly winning 95 games every year with Chris Davis and Adam Jones and Zach Britton and all those characters. So the Orioles being below the Reds was, I think, a little shocking. But look at your Reds, third worst team in baseball.
I can't believe the White Sox are as high as they are. I know they won the World Series. I know they won the World. How many points you say? 9? They get 9 for that?
Yeah, Case, pop that back up on there if you don't mind. But if you win the World Series, you get 9 points. If you lose, you get 6 points.
Okay, so 9. So half their points are
for all the playoff wins, like divisional round and all that fun stuff too. So
still, even with they haven't won a playoff series outside of that. So I'm confused as where they get. I guess just because lack of wins for the Reds. That's they don't win games either. I don't think they have 7 winning seasons in the last 30 years, and half of those are like 83 win seasons or barely above 500.
So you lose points if you have a 90+ losses.
Yeah, and the Reds did that
You're right.
3 straight years.
Right.
And the White Sox, to be honest, they've never really done that other than this past year. They were terrible. Who's maybe the most shocking team is the Brewers being in the 20s.
Yeah.
Once again, I know the Brewers haven't made it to a World Series, obviously haven't won a World Series in their franchise's history. I think they made it to 1 World Series, and it was when they were in the American League back in the 80s. But them being below the White Sox is shocking. I think the Tigers being that low shocked me because they were really good in the 2000s. But it is interesting.
I thought the Giants would be higher. Giants with those 3 World Series.
Yeah, but they haven't made – I don't know if They had the 110, the random 110 win season, and haven't done anything else. I'm trying to see where the Angels are at. The Angels being 9th. What about that, guys? Being in the top 10.
That can't be right.
That is right, because in the 2000s, they went to the NL. They won a World Series in 2002.
Oh, with Lackey and all those guys, yeah.
Yeah, Vlad Guerrero, Sean Figgins, Garrett Anderson, that whole bunch. But in the 2000s, they won like 100 games like every year and went to the ALCS like every year. So that's why they're up there. Obviously, they haven't made the postseason in 11 years, but
and they also don't lose they don't have back-to-back, consecutive 90-loss seasons, so they don't lose points, so they still get propped up with that. The Marlins, they've won a World Series, but because they've had so many 90-loss plus seasons, it's just chipped away at that over and over and over, so they're ranked low too.
The Marlins started as a franchise, I believe, in 1993. They won the World Series in 1997. They won the World Series 2003. They've only made the World Series 2 other times. One was the COVID year and one was 2 years ago. So before COVID, they had made the postseason twice and won the World Series twice, which is a good ratio to have, to be honest
It's very, very good. The Royals on there with 9. They get their 1 World Series.
The Royals have been bad, yeah.
The Royals have been terrible. I mean, I know that stretch obviously makes them –
it was a 2-year stretch where they won 2 straight pennants.
Yeah.
They lost to the Giants in 2014. Madison Bumgarner, shout out Madison Bumgarner, had one of the greatest, maybe the greatest postseason ever, Mad Bum in 2014, and then obviously won it in 2015. R.I.P. Yordano Ventura.
There you go. All right, we'll step away for a few. We'll switch over to the NFL quick. The Browns are looking for a quarterback. Could they end up with Russell Wilson? Well, what about the Steelers? Are they going to get Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. They just may have got their quarterback. They're reuniting with an old friend. That news just came out a little bit ago. We'll talk about the Steelers' new quarterback when we come back. Plus, Diana Rossini has an update on the trade status, if you will, or at least the what you could get back in return for. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson will get to all of that, talk some Bengals, AFC North, NFL free agency to close out the radio side when we come back. All right, we welcome you back off the bench. Presented by United Dairy Farmers, Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Reed Mouse with you here on a Thursday. We do have dialed in on the Chatterbox YouTube side. Coming up immediately following this, Terry Francona going to join Tom Brenneman, Luke Brenneman, and yes, our guy Casey McAllister. That's why I was wondering. That's why Casey, he has the polo on today. He's looking dapper over there. Put the camera on Casey. Casey, put the camera on you. There, look at you. We got Terry Francona coming on polo right there. I like it.
Yeah. I wore it specifically for Terry. I hope he enjoys this little red polo I got on.
You know what I call that? Dialed in. He's dialed. He's dolled
right.
up. He's dolled up and dialed in, baby.
That's right.
DUDI.
See what you did there. By the way, how embarrassing is it for the Steelers that you're going after the same QBs that the Browns are? You're you know what I mean? You're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're having to fight the Cleveland Browns off for the same quarterback. For Cleveland, it's funny because if you get one of these quarterbacks, it's a win. If the Steelers get one of these quarterbacks, it's a loss. The Steelers are in a weird spot right now. But The Steelers, it just came out about a half hour ago that they are bringing back Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph is the quarterback that the Steelers ultimately come away with. I don't know if that means that they're out of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. I mean, Mason Rudolph has been a backup for the Steelers before. He's been a starter for them before. I don't know if that means they're out of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes or not. Like I said, I don't know what this means for Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. I have no clue. Is Mason Rudolph, do you think that's a sign by did the Pittsburgh Steelers sign him to be their starting quarterback? Is Mason Rudolph their starting quarterback? Is that what this signing was to you?
No, it better not be. I mean,
no way.
I mean,
no.
He had 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year with Tennessee. He couldn't be worse. So if that's their starting quarterback, I wish him all the best. And I thank him for their service, for giving the Bengals a couple of wins next year, because there's no way that guy
Don't
has.
Say that. Don't say that.
If we lose to Mason Rudolph,
listen, when I talk to Reds fans, they talk about Cardinals and Brewers devil magic.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with the Steelers, but I mean, I will never count them out, literally ever, because they've ruined my life. They are sole responsibility for ruining my life, because every time that we'd play them for some way, they'd win. Even when you thought that the Bengals were going to win, the Steelers just snuck it out regardless. I remember 2 years ago, after the Bengals made the AFC Championship game for the second straight year, I went to PNC Park, and during a Pirates game, I started talking to some Steelers fans. I looked one square in the eye, was maybe a little lubricated, and I said, "What's it like never beating the Bengals again?" And then, of course, the next year they swept the Bengals in dominating fashion. So, yeah, I don't know. Mason Rudolph's not going to be their starting quarterback. I don't know who is, but it's not going to be Mason Rudolph.
So, and that's the thing. And by the way, I could see that being the case. I don't think they're as anti-Mason Rudolph as you guys think. Look, he started 29 games for them in the past. It's not as if they've been totally against him. I mean, that's what, 2-3. I mean, that's 2+ seasons of Mason Rudolph being their starting quarterback in seasons past. And to be honest, they have a 500 record with them. They won games with them. That's
why
they
win with anybody. They win with anybody.
Yes, and that was my whole point about like last year when people were just flabbergasted that the Steelers moved on from Justin Fields. I don't really, like, Mike Tomlin drives me nuts, but like my favorite line from him last year when they ultimately benched Justin Fields for Russell Wilson, my favorite line ever was, "Don't confuse good with great. Justin Fields was good. He wasn't great." But they were 4-2 with Justin Fields. Yes, having a winning record with Justin Fields is not surprising. They had a winning record with Mason Rudolph. They had a winning record with geriatric Big Ben. Like, guys, the Steelers, there's a reason that so many seasons we come into saying this is going to be the year that they fall on their face, and yet they're still competing for the playoffs or making the playoffs, and they finish above 500 every year. Of course they win with whoever they put under center back there. That's just what the Steelers do. Obviously, Russell Wilson, things did not go well with him last year. Obviously, they lost, 5 straight games or whatever it was to close out the regular season. Pittsburgh not very good to close it out. But yeah, Mason Rudolph, I don't think that they want him to be their starting quarterback, but I think if they strike out on a Kirk Cousins or a Joe Flacco or, yes, even an Aaron Rodgers, I don't think it's the end of the world for the Steelers with Mason Rudolph being their quarterback. You brought up his numbers, Elliot. I mean, Tennessee's picking number 1 for a reason right now. I don't know who the hell he'd be throwing to. So I'm with you though. I'm not a big Mason Rudolph guy. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh's just content with him being the starter.
I think it is.
It's a backup plan. It's a backup plan in case everything else falls through. You were right about that, Elliot. Go.
I was going to say I think it is the end of the world if that's their quarterback. I mean, there's no way anybody in that organization is taking that as an accepted option to lead their team. There's just no way. I understand that the Steelers have devil magic and that they can win with anybody, but if you ever hope to like the Bengals, we sit here and we talk about we want all these guys coming back. We want that. We want this. We're a championship level team if we keep, Trey, T, Jamar, everybody that we have right now. I believe that because we have Joe Burrow. And pretty much anybody with a quarterback has the belief that they can win a Super Bowl because they have that quarterback. There's no one in Pittsburgh that thinks Mason Rudolph is going to win a Super Bowl. There's not one person in Pittsburgh. Not one. You couldn't find me one.
Is there any quarterback available that they would feel that way though? Like considering who's available,
I think everybody would talk themselves into Aaron Rodgers. Everybody in Pittsburgh would talk themselves into
Aaron Rodgers. It's all an illusion of choice. It's all the illusion of free will here because it could be Mason Rudolph, it could be Aaron Rodgers, it could be Kirk Cousins, it could be any of those guys. They're going to finish the season 9-8. Like, it doesn't matter who they. It could be Kelly Holcomb, it could be Tommy Maddox, it could be Andrew McCutcheon. It doesn't matter who the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to throw out there as their starting quarterback. They're going to go 9-8. They're going to make the postseason. They're going to lose by 1 billion points, and Buffalo is going to be the 2 seed. We do this all, run them around all year long, and then when we know what the end goal is, what it's going to end up being. But Mason Rudolph is their backup plan. That's an insurance. Not a good one, but that's their insurance because he's familiar. He has started for them. He's played big boy games. And if they don't get one of the, remaining free agents, that's who they fall back on, and they go, all right, maybe we draft a guy. We'll see. But I just can't believe that they are going into the year thinking, Mason Rudolph's the guy.
Again, if you're just joining us, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they agreed to terms with quarterback Mason Rudolph, 2-year, $8 million deal. And I don't know if there's like a, opt out after the first year, whatever. But either way, 2 years, $8 million. And again, good backup option. That's a good. I mean, if he's your backup quarterback, that's a good thing. If he's your starter, they're 500 with him. But you're right, Elliot. They're not winning. They're not winning a Super Bowl.
No. He can keep your season alive if your quarterback goes down for 3 or 4 weeks. That's your goal of every backup ever.
Yep.
Is that if we have to bridge a gap, this guy can win a game or two and keep us alive. We're not going to go 0-4 over the course of a month with you starting.
Senior NFL insider Diana Rossini with The Athletic. She tweeted out earlier this morning that teams are willing to pay Trey Hendrickson the contract that he desires, but have found Cincinnati's current asking price to be ridiculous, as one GM has told her. The Bengals can adjust as the offseason progresses, but right now teams are not willing to meet their terms. This thing continues to get, stranger and stranger. I mean, so there are multiple teams who are looking at Trey Hendrickson saying, we are willing to pay you the market, and I don't think it's $40 million. It's not Myles Garrett, but they're willing to pay him what he's asking for. What is that number? Do you think that it is? It's not the 40, right? It's not what Myles Garrett got. There's no way. But where are we at with what you just read and heard from that update from Diana Rossini?
When you asked me to fill in and host, I believe it was Friday last week, about a week ago, it was hot off the news that Trey Hendrickson had been given clearance to go and court trades. And I sat in this room when it felt like Bengals fans were dead. And I don't know how you should feel about this if you are a Bengals fan, but I sat here and I go, if what I understand about the Bengals is true, then Trey Hendrickson will play for the Bengals next year, because this is what I assumed was going to happen. Trey Hendrickson would find suitors. He'd find teams that are willing to pay him what he's owed, because he was the league leader in sacks last year on a defense that was terrible, and a defense that you could literally put all of your energy into stopping him, and he still led the league in sacks. So in the 30 plus million range, you'll find a team that will pay you that and extend you that. The problem is no team is going to take on that contract and give the Bengals a top 50 pick and a fourth, or a top 50 pick and a third. No team's going to do that. So I just imagined, a call from the Seattle Seahawks comes into Paycor Stadium, and they go, hey, we talked with Trey. We've worked out an extension. If you're willing to trade him, we're going to give him whatever, $33 million a year over 3 years or 4 years. We're willing to give you a third and a fifth. And I think that call is going to go to the Blackburns and Mike Brown, and they're going to laugh at it. And they're just going to say, there's no way in hell we're making that deal. There's not a chance in Hades that we're going to make that deal. And that's what I imagine happens, and that's what probably will happen. I think Rossini said, the quote was, they find the price ridiculous, not the Trey Hendrickson price, the trade price ridiculous, because of the capital that you have to give. It's not just $30 million of your salary cap. It's also premier draft capital in this upcoming draft. So that's where I just always assumed that the Cincinnati Bengals were always going to end up with Trey Hendrickson. He might sit out a few games, but I just can't imagine that the two things that need to happen, both good enough draft assets coming back and them willing to extend something that Trey Hendrickson's comfortable with, I just think one of those two things are never going to coincide with the other.
I don't think it's. I think this is. By the way, I know we've been killing the Bengals here for the better part of a couple weeks. This is absolutely. They're making the right call here. Their price should be ridiculous. It should be outlandish. You should be giving me a first-round pick and maybe a fourth-round pick. Like, you should be giving me multiple picks and pay him what he's worth. And by the way, if you think he's worth $35 million or $33 million, whatever he's asking, do you think that he's also not worth a pick? Like, I don't, like, that's the part I don't get, because you're valuing him at an absurd price. So you would have to venture out and say that, yeah, I mean, it's going to be an absurd ask to pair with it, because he's good. I mean, he's a good football player. Right. And teams know that. They want to pay for it. I understand them not wanting to give up a first-round pick, but I also understand the Cincinnati Bengals not giving him away for a third and calling it a day, because that's ludicrous. Right. And the Bengals would be equally killed for that.
And the team wanting him isn't going to want to give out $30 million and a second-round pick.
No.
That's just a crazy high ask. It's when I think of what's currently going on with the Bengals, and I told Trace and Sean this outside the studio, we all look at it as Bengals fans as going, why won't they extend T? Why won't they extend Jamar? Why won't they extend Trey? I think Mike Brown, I've never met the guy, so I'm working off just his reputation here. I think Mike Brown looks at this roster and goes, I've got Trey Hendrickson locked up for a year. I've got Tee Higgins locked up for a year. I've got Jamar Chase locked up for 3 years. Reminder, like, we can keep Jamar Chase here for 3 years if we wanted to. Now, whether he plays, that's a whole different can of worms. But in terms of the way that the team is constructed, in terms of the way that this whole roster is made up, that's the way it works. You can keep T here on a franchise tag. You've got one more year of Trey Hendrickson. You've got one more year of the rookie deal with Jamar Chase. Then you can franchise tag him twice. So that's how I think Mike Brown looks at this whole thing. He thinks he has all the cards, and into some point he does, because those guys are on this team for another year, both Tee Higgins and Trey Hendrickson and Jamar Chase up to 3 years. Now, we know that that's not the smart thing to do. We know you got to extend these guys. You got to keep them happy so that they want to play, all these things. But that's just the way that I think Mike Brown looks at this whole situation.
And as we've talked about, Trey Hendrickson was extended 2 years ago, an extension he agreed to. And that's been like I said this 2 days ago. I was like, I don't put Trey in the same category as Jamar and T. I think Jamar and T need to be that those deals need to get done. I don't know we know what the holdup is, but like, I feel more bad for those two. I don't feel bad for Trey. I just don't. Like, you agreed to this. Like, you agreed to these numbers, even coming off of some really good seasons. Like, he needed to gamble on himself and bet on himself more. And because he did the oh crap moment of after he signed the contract, realizing the money that he left on the table probably can't put that on the Brown family. And they're going to get beat up, because I think right now with them coming off back-to-back missed playoff seasons, being as bad as they are on defense, I think that it puts a magnifying glass on this situation even more. It's like, because if you don't, he has to play. They're not going to move him. I don't see how they move him, why they would move him. Well, it just doesn't make sense at this point.
Right. It's one of the things aren't going to equal up. And I want to say this, while I agree with you that Trey Hendrickson, he signed a contract and he's here. This is what we got on him last year about saying, like, oh, you want to extend? I would do the same thing if I was Trey Hendrickson. Listen, if you're at Chatterbox, I signed a 2-year contract, and after the first year of contract, I've sold $500,000 in ad sales, and I'll be like, hey, Trace, I think I should get paid a little more, right? I think I'm owed a little bit more money. He has every right to go, well, you signed a contract, and that's just where we're at. That's business, baby. That's just what happens. So I don't know. I just think that the most likely scenario with the whole Trey Hendrickson thing is that he plays under his current contract. I don't know what that entails. I don't know if he sits out. I think it's likely that he sits out all of training camp, that maybe he even misses a game or two. But I think the most likely scenario is that he plays under this contract and goes as an unrestricted free agent next year.
$50,000 per day penalty for training camp absences for players on veteran contracts. So you're telling me that guy is going to give out millions just to prove a point? Nah. Nah, he's going to be unhappy, and maybe that's the reason for his lack of production. But I told you this a couple weeks ago. If he's pissed off and he cries and he plays terribly this year, I think that's another point for the Brown family is why you don't pay him, because he didn't have a good year. So that's why you don't pay a 30-year-old, and that's at least that's their rationale what it's going to be.
Well, he's also he'd be in a contract year, so he'd want to play well so that he can get paid next year.
Correct. So it's. The Bengals do hold the leverage in that situation.
Kind of. However, I don't know. I saw a video of him the other day. That hammy, I don't know. Didn't it look a little tight?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. He might have that.
Just get you a doctor that signs off.
Remember Adam
Schefter? Do that.
Yeah.
And people do that. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be another Sheldon Rankins season. So.
Hey, if there's one thing that your team has taught me is that hardball sometimes work. Hardball, because that's what they did with Myles Garrett. I know they paid him like the biggest contract ever, but Myles Garrett said, I don't want to play for you. And the Browns said, you're going to play for us. And then he said, no, I'm not going to play for you. And then they said, no, you're going to play for us. And they said, can I get a trade? And they said, no. And they said, here's a contract. It's a really good contract. We think you should sign it. We think it's fair. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll play for you guys. So that's exactly what happened in Cleveland. They never even once went out to find a suitor for a trade. It's just hardball works sometimes.
And the protest. The Cleveland Browns fans had the protest where that one guy showed up for him.
Hey, we're out of time. That wraps it up. Look at that. We got Dialed In coming up. Casey, close us out. Your thoughts. I know you're ready to go. Terry Francona is coming up. Dialed In. Yourself, Tom Brenneman, Luke Brenneman. You guys are ready to rock. Closing thoughts on the Bengals here. Give you the mic.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of touch on what we already talked about with Trey Hendrickson, I kind of agree with the idea that he's going to be here. There's no other option. Like, they're not going to be able to replace him. Even if they drafted someone, there's no point in getting rid of Hendrickson now because there's no other help on the other side. So that being said, the Bengals are in a peculiar spot. Tevin Jenkins, those reports that they're interested in him. He's about a 15-17 million a year type player. And they have about 29 million, and with the Tee Higgins contract, they can make it all work to where Hendrickson can still get money this year at a good price, about 30 to 32 million this year. I don't think they'll go past this year, of course, but I think there will end up being, like we talked about, he's going to probably hold out, maybe miss a few games, and then they'll come to some agreement to where they'll give Hendrickson that 30 million mark this year and then let him walk at the end of the season, which I think is the smart move now at this point, and that is what I expect the Bengals to do. Hopefully they can get some other deals done besides Jenkins, but with the money and how uncertain the Tee Higgins deal is, it's hard to really project any other additions to the team. I think defensively, there's no other guys I would want, but offensively, I think like there's guys like Brandon Sheriff, Will Hernandez on the offensive line that I'd really be interested in. Maybe you can find some more depth at running back. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the current situation the Bengals find themselves in.
Yep, and to close out, we just had Jay Morrison on earlier in the week. Very similar to what Casey just said. He said the one thing he could see happening is the Brown family comes to terms with, of course, Trey Hendrickson, says, look, you're making $16 million a season. We'll double it to 32 for this upcoming season, and then part ways after this upcoming season. That way he doesn't feel slighted. It's a contract year. Go out, earn that big contract with your next team. They still get the production of Trey Hendrickson, and then there's no cloud hovering over this situation heading into camp. They have two other clouds that they have to worry about at this point with T and Jamar. All right, Reed, you the man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll have more of this tomorrow. Hope Jacob feels better, but if not, Reed, you're coming out of the bullpen again tomorrow. We'll see.
I can't come tomorrow. I just got an email saying I absolutely cannot. So you guys will be out without me tomorrow. So have fun.
All right, me versus Elliot. Browns talk 2 hours tomorrow. Can't wait.
Oh boy,
Can't wait. All right, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. We got Dialed In coming up next. Tom Brenneman, Luke Brenneman, Casey McAllister, and Reds manager Terry Francona. Pretty exciting stuff there. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.